Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the MedBriefing. I'm Sophie, Head of Clinic at MedBrief, and today's episode is one that's very close to my heart. As some of you may know, I have a medical alert assistance dog called Tashi, trained by the wonderful charity Medical Detection Dogs. In today's episode, we'll be joined by Gemma, who will tell us more about the charity, the wonderful people, and the wonderful dogs behind it all. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
So I'm Head of Communications and People Engagement at Medical Detection Dogs. I've been with the charity for about 6.5 years. And I absolutely love it. Every minute working here is brilliant. So Medical Detection Dogs trains dogs to save lives using their amazing sense of smell in a nutshell. So we have two different sides to the charity. We train medical alert assistance dogs like Tashi, who, as you well know, work with individuals who have really complex health conditions that make them become unwell very quickly without warning. So they would typically give them a 5 to 10 minute warning when they're about to maybe collapse or have a seizure, or their blood sugars are going to go too high or too low. Which obviously doesn't stop the episode happening, but it means they can be prepared, they can become safe, they can take the necessary medication. This genuinely saves their life, sometimes multiple times a day, but it also gives them back their independence and confidence and just allows them to do things that honestly I would take for granted. But, popping to Tesco to have a look around the clothing section or something like that suddenly becomes possible again. And on the other side of the charity, we train biodetection dogs. So these dogs work in the training room on human samples to detect diseases such as different kinds of cancers, Parkinson's disease, bacterial infections. We always say don't ever accept a dinner invite at Medical Detection Dogs because the freezers are full of urine and sweat samples and all sorts of pleasant things like that. But different samples are used for different conditions. Now, these dogs don't work directly with people, but in the future, we believe they'll play a really vital part in medical science and the early diagnosis of some of these diseases.
Wonderful. And can you tell us a little bit about how much a dog costs to train?
It typically costs around £30,000 to train one of our dogs. That's from the moment we get them, their training, all of their insurance, their medical costs, all sorts of things associated with them. Most of our clients will come to us and we will provide them with a dog that's been trained at the charity, that's been socialised by our volunteers, and then they get matched with them later on in the process. Sometimes, and more actually, people are coming to us with pet dogs that they say that they would like to be trained. Either, they've started before the dog's been showing any signs of alerting, or perhaps they're doing it off their own back. But typically it costs us £30,000 to train a dog.
And are there any breeds better suited to being an assistance dog than others?
We get asked this quite a lot, actually. In theory, I think most dogs could do it because they're basically doing something that comes really naturally to them. They're sniffing, they're using their noses, and they're forming bonds with humans. But of course, there are some breeds that it comes really naturally to. The gun dog breeds, such as the Labradors, the Spaniels. But increasingly, we have people that are coming to us with poodle types because obviously of the allergens and things that come with other dogs. But we've got a range of dogs on the programme now, which is really exciting to me as the comms person, because, of course, I receive all the lovely pictures of them, and it's really nice to see Vizslas, Yorkie poos, Cockapoos. So there's more and more breeds coming onto the programme, but some definitely it comes naturally to them.
And what would you say is the biggest training challenge for dogs that come through the programme?
It's the fundraising, honestly. So, we've got the people in place, we've got the expertise in place, we've got a really long waiting list of people that have applied for our assistance dogs. Of course, we'd like to give every single one of them a dog, but it costs us lots of money and we are a charity. So, it's funding. Like with lots of charities at the moment, it's fundraising, with the cost of living crisis and all the other things people need to pay for. We appreciate that making a donation is never going to be top of the list. But if we had all the money in the world, in theory, we could hopefully train all the dogs in the world.
And what's a typical day like for a detection dog?
So dogs in their early training, so if we strip it right back, when the dogs come to us at about 8 weeks old, they're just having a nice time, to be honest with you. They're exploring their new garden and getting to know their new humans. And, they might be taken out for little gentle walks that kind of increased as time goes on. As they start to get further into their training, the socialising and the public access becomes really important. So they might start the day with their breakfast, of course, especially if you're a Labrador, you can't possibly function until you've had that. Maybe a game of tuggy at home or pottering around next to their puppy socialisers. Then they would probably go into town. So they would practice maybe going into a library, supermarket, doctor's surgery. We would want these dogs to go as many places as possible from an early age so they become really comfortable there, and nothing's a big deal to them when their client needs to go to a hospital appointment or get on the train or something like that. But one of the things we get asked the most is, well, do they ever get any downtime? Are they just constantly working and waiting for the alert? I mean, you'll know from Tashi, they are, a lot of the time, you wouldn't even know how amazingly clever they are. They're upside down on their back or squeaking their toy or something like that. So they're not waiting to alert all the time. But when the odour change happens and you're about to become unwell, their noses just tell them and they switch on.
Do you have a funny memory of any dog that you've had through the doors that has made you laugh or that you continually share stories about?
I had a real soft spot for a golden retriever called Millie. I'm a bit of a golden retriever girl anyway. I grew up with Goldies and she was absolutely beautiful. And obviously as the head of comms, we used her quite a lot. She just looked great. Plus she was really good at her job, more importantly. So she was a COVID-19 detection dog for a while during the pandemic. And we'd got a film crew coming in. I think it was ITV News. It was live. And she did her, she went up and down the stand, sniffed all of the samples, sat down to indicate when she found the odour and let one rip. Basically live on TV. No nice way of putting it. She did her job, she did everything we need, but I could see the presenter, the camera, and everyone was like, because it's live TV. So God love her, I loved her even more for that. She was just such a character anyway, and she just didn't care. If you've got to let it out, you've got to let it out.
We've talked a lot about what the dogs do and about what they could potentially do, but what kind of conditions are they being trained to detect, either for the alert dogs or the biodetection currently?
So when we started over 15 years ago, a lot of the assistance dogs we were training was for type 1 diabetes, because at that time there was very little technology available. Now, of course, things have come a long way and there's all sorts of bits of kit that can help. Some clients, it still doesn't help and the dogs are still much more accurate. So we do definitely still have type 1 diabetes clients. But POTS is a condition, as well, much more than me, that at the minute, nothing really helps, does it? There's no, there is no early warning. There is no sort of easy way to manage it. So a lot of our clients are coming to us with POTS. For us, it's all about where we think we can make the most impact. And with a condition like POTS, where there really isn't many alternatives or any alternatives, we know that the dogs make a real difference. I'm sure there will be a new POTS or a new type 1 diabetes. The conditions are changing and developing all the time. On the biodetection side of things, at the moment, our active project is bowel cancer. So we know that one of the main barriers to people getting tested for bowel cancer is because as British people are very awkward and embarrassed, and giving a poo sample is just not something that people want to do. So we're training our dogs on urine, which is not quite so taboo. And, most people have had to provide a urine sample at some point. It's just not a big deal. And again, there will be other diseases in the future as well, I'm sure. But our focus mainly is on that one to get a robust set of scientific results for that project.
And do the dogs get excited when they find the scent they're training to find?
So we always joke at MDD that it's like the school run in our car park in the morning. The dogs get dropped off by their parents to go to school and they get picked up in the evening. And honestly, from as soon as the car boots fly open, the tails start wagging and they can't wait to get. I think sometimes their socialisers and fosterers think, oh, great, well, I feed you and take you for a walk and things, and you're just really happy to get to work. So we make it a really fun, positive environment. And that's really important from the word go. Before they start on any project or doing any odour work, their trainers will spend some time with them, making themselves really fun. So of course they want to spend time with them, they want to work for them. At the end of when they get it right, they get a tennis ball, they get a treat, and they get a cuddle. Like, what's not to love? That's what they all want, kind of thing. And what I also think is brilliant is when they don't find the odour, they get the same reward because they've still made the right decision.
If the dogs could talk, what do you think they'd say?
I think they'd say we've got the best job in the world because we're sniffing, which we would do anyway. We seem to get a treat when we sniff something, which we do anyway. And then we get a cuddle from our favourite people in the world, our trainers. So I think they'd say they get a good work-life balance and they love their job.
And what's the best way for listeners to get involved?
There's loads of different ways you can support MDD. I'm really glad you've asked that. So you could obviously make a donation, of course, as a charity, that's really important to us. But you could sponsor a puppy. So you're making a donation, but you'd get to keep up to date with a puppy's training journey. You could volunteer for us. We've got all sorts of roles, whether you want to be a driver or a gardener or a speaker. We would ask that you tell people about us, spread the word. There's a really good corporate support package that we offer here. So if your business or your workplace wants to sort of choose a charity of the year, like you have done yourself, we would work with you to make it fun and give you ideas. We wouldn't just sort of leave you on your own to come up with things, although you've come up with a brilliant idea all by yourself. So there's lots and lots of different ways. Follow us on social media, keep up to date with our news. But the more people that know about us, the more people can support us. So if nothing else, after you've listened to this, you tell a couple of people what you've learned, that would be amazing.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's coming up next in the next 5 years at MDD?
So obviously we would like to train and place as many medical alert assistance dogs for as many different conditions as we can do. That's kind of a given. We would also like to complete our bowel cancer detection project, which is the most active project in the training room at the moment. So we're training our dogs to detect the odour of bowel cancer in urine, because we know that one of the biggest barriers to people getting those important tests and potentially early diagnosis is the awkwardness around giving a poo sample. Honestly, we're very British. This is, very unnatural to us, but giving a urine sample has much less stigma around that. So, and that's a project that we're really excited about and we believe is really important. We often get asked whether dogs will whether the biodetection dogs would work sniffing people. And usually the answer is no, they work in the training room on anonymous samples. But we've got a really exciting project at the moment to train dogs to detect the odour of UTI. So these dogs will go into places like care homes and rehabilitation centres and places where people could be at real risk of getting UTIs that maybe aren't able to communicate that they're not feeling very well. And in the same way that almost like a drugs dog at the airport would kind of passively screen you, which means they would come near you and sort of sniff the air around you, but they wouldn't touch you. They will be trained to detect the odour of UTI and give an indication to that. What's lovely about that project is we've got what we call community assistance dogs, which work alongside them, which are almost like pet dogs, if you like. So we wouldn't want somebody in a care home to be stroking and petting and cuddling the UTI detection dog because they're there to work. But equally, we understand that these people might feel a bit uncomfortable about it or not understand it. So if there's a dog that can go in first for the cuddles, then that's what they'll do. And those dogs are hilarious. They were born for this role. They're just literally born to become dogs. So that's a really exciting project that we think will make a real difference in the community and really vulnerable groups.
And so dogs alongside medical tech, is this something that you'll see rolled out in the future, something that we see quite regularly in hospitals?
I hope so, yes. So the sort of ultimate aim with some of our cancer work in particular is to create what we would call an e-nose, an electronic nose. I don't know what it'll be called in the future, but in the same way that your phone can detect whether your blood pressure is high or you need to do some exercise or you've sat down for too long and all these funky things that our phones can do now, we would like to think that perhaps they would be able to detect if your PSA levels are high, if you're a gentleman that's at risk of having prostate cancer, for example. And that will have been informed by dogs' noses. At the moment, dogs are the only things on planet Earth that knows what cancer smells like. So whatever the phone knows or whatever the bit of tech that we use it becomes, the dogs will have given that the information to be able to do what it can do. So, we're a little way off that, not as far as we were many years ago. We're making advances all the time. We've got lots of exciting developments happening with that. But yeah, these noses, we hope, will be translated into something a bit more techie one day. If we do ourselves out of a job on prostate cancer, for example, then great. As far as we're concerned, we've done what we need to do. So, but there will always be a place for dogs detecting conditions such as POPs or new conditions that we don't know anything about yet.
And just to finish, do you have 3 words to describe the dogs that you work with at MDD?
There are so many. Inspiring, clever, and amazing.
Thank you so much, Gemma, for joining us. It's been really insightful. If you'd like to support the charity, please visit medicaldetectiondogs.org. We're also hosting a big dog walk on Sunday the 26th of October in aid of medical detection dogs. For more information, please check out our socials.